We're pleased to welcome now Representative Dana McLean, represents Mississippi House District 39, which includes Lowndes and Monroe counties, and also Sandy Middleton, Executive Director of the Center for Violence Prevention. Ladies, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having us.
All right, so we wanted to talk today about some legislation that you're working on concerning rape kits and making those available in emergency rooms. Is that correct?
Correct.
Representative McLean? All right,
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Well, earlier in the session, I filed House Bill 928, and what that does, it actually mandates that hospitals do what they're supposed to do, which is treat and perform a rape kit on any sexual assault victim that presents to an ER. So the bill actually mandates that they have a supply of rape kits. They have a medical person on hand that can perform the kit, and that they do not turn any victim away. That's basically it.
Sandy, why would a hospital's ER not have rape kits available?
Well, that was our question from the very beginning, and it just became more apparent to us. And as you know, we cover the state for human trafficking, and human trafficking, sexual assault, are very closely akin. And we just had multiple occasions where rape victims were just told, "We don't do that here. We don't do that here," or if we pushed them and said, "Well, your hospital ER, it's an EMTALA violation if you don't do that, if you don't offer them care."
Sure.
And then they would say, "Well, we don't have a kit, and if you'll go up to Memphis, maybe they can do it for you." There's apparently a place up there that does it in house, and so we even had one situation where a victim didn't even have transportation, and it was during a storm, and she was advised to travel to Memphis, and so she went to 2 other hospitals and got turned away 2 other places, and it's so unfair to a victim of sexual assault who not only needs to have the opportunity to have a forensic medical kit done, but that's a violent attack. Many times there are injuries. Testing needs to occur. Was her attacker, did they have HIV? Was there some sort of sexually transmitted disease there? And so it's more than just the rape kit. It's the whole package that these victims are being turned away.
So, Representative McLean, why would a hospital, why are they so reluctant to conduct these tests?
I really would like to know why.
Well, is this an expense associated with this? Would they be responsible for funding the kits and paying for them out of their pocket?
They would not. They are actually reimbursed by the Attorney General's office.
For the kit?
Yes.
What about the services?
For the procedure.
For the procedure?
Yes,
the
absolutely.
AG reimburses them?
The office, actually, Sandy can speak to that.
Okay.
Yes, so the federal money provides victim compensation funds to our state, and the Attorney General's office handles that fund.
Gotcha.
And so they have it in their administrative rule that they'll pay up to $1,000.
Okay.
And then also other insurance comes into play. If they have to have additional testing or treatment, then if the person has another insurance or Medicare, Medicaid or something, then that could also come into play. But yes, they shouldn't bear any expense from performing the medical forensic kit.
Representative McLean, is the goal here to confirm that, in fact, a victim, a patient, was raped, and then to try to perhaps gain some more information that could be used to find the perpetrator here?
Well, this is the only way, Gerard, that we'll be able to do that. The first step is to have the evidence against an attacker.
Okay.
And if a victim is not able to obtain a rape kit, that attacker goes free. And so to attack or violate someone again, and we know that has happened, a few years ago, where the mother that was out running in Memphis was killed and sexually assaulted by a rapist that had raped someone previously. They had the rape kit, a year-old rape kit that had never been processed. So step one is to make sure that we have the forensic evidence to prosecute. So this is just a minimum we're asking for. We're just asking for them to have the supply, perform the kit, and don't turn a victim away.
So, Sandy, is there a time element associated with this? Does the test need to be conducted within a certain amount of time post a rape?
Yes.
To determine.
Right. Yes, it's 90. They just changed it to, I believe, 96 hours from the time of the attack. So yes, time is definitely an element. And of course, every time the victim goes to the bathroom or changes clothes or anything, you're losing DNA evidence.
I got you.
And so it's critical that it happens immediately. And the thing is that we've leaned on law enforcement to do their part, and people have beat up law enforcement. They didn't do what they needed to do, blah blah blah. Well, now we're actually in a situation where law enforcement is just as frustrated as we are, because they're transporting these victims to hospitals they're transporting them, and they're leaning in saying, we need this kit done. Let me go get you a kit, because we want that evidence too to be able to prosecute this person. And that breakdown is just continuing to happen in hospitals. So, and I do want to say, Gerard, we have like 5 sayings that work for us at the Center for Violence Prevention, and we have memorandums of understanding with all of the Jackson hospitals except UMC. And so, they love the collaborative effort that we have, and they're excited about it, and it just has worked beautifully. And, I don't know if some of these hospitals need to try to find that collaborative person, a nonprofit that can also offer sayings, or what the answer is. But honestly, it's not that hard. I mean, any RN can do the kit.
Okay.
Anybody. It's a bunch of swabs for the most part.
Representative McLean, would the patient have to provide permission to conduct the test under this bill?
Well, we have not put any language regarding, what the victim requests or requires, but if they present and don't want a rape kit, that's their prerogative.
Okay.
That's their right. They don't have to have a rape kit done.
Sure.
But I would think they're at the hospital for treatment. They've been sexually assaulted. Law enforcement has brought them there. That's the purpose. But they're not going to force them to undergo a rape kit if that's not what they want.
I mean, just like any other medical test, you have to sign off and approve that. Yeah.
Sure.
And this would work the same way. But I just wondered if there are any situations where a victim may say, no, I don't really want to do that.
Yes, they are. And actually, with the follow-up that Representative McLean worked on a couple of years ago in the legislation about the crime lab and all of that, the intent is to create an anonymous reporting system so that a victim can come in and say, I'm not sure if I want to cooperate. I'm not sure if I want to, participate in the prosecution, but I do want my kit to be performed so I can think about it and make up my mind. And then that gives the victim the prerogative to go home, talk to family, think about it and decide later on, do I want to participate or do I just want to end it now?
Okay, so you conduct the test, and if they decide to move forward, you've got the evidence you need to do so.
Correct.
So that would mean then that the hospital would not furnish that information to law enforcement without the consent of the victim?
Well, the way that would work is there would be a tracking number. There's a barcode and a tracking number. There's no name or anything on the kit.
Gotcha.
So there's just a number that identifies that kit to that person.
Tell us what's happening now, Dana. Do we have situations now where, because there's no rape kit available, a victim of sexual assault presents, as you say, to the ER, and they say, look, I was raped, and they maintain they were raped, and there's no test done, and then it just dies at that point?
That's exactly what has happened, and it has happened all over the state. It's happened in various areas of the state where they have been told, we don't perform kits here, we don't have kits, go to a different hospital. And as Sandy mentioned, we had a victim of human trafficking back in January during the ice storm up in North Mississippi, and she went to 3 different places. She sat at one ER for 8 hours and was eventually told, we don't have any kits here. So if you can imagine what that feels like for that victim to be traumatized over and over again.
Yeah, it just worsens, exacerbates the situation. If you ladies can hang around, we can continue the discussion
Sure.
on the other side of the break. Got Representative Dana McLean and Sandy Middleton in the Element Well studio. We're coming right back. We are back in the Element Well studio with Representative Dana McLean and Sandy Middleton, who's the Executive Director of the Center for Violence Prevention. We're talking about this legislation that would ensure that rape kits are used in emergency rooms in a timely manner when a patient victim presents to the ER that has just experienced sexual assault. So, Representative McLean, what's the status of the legislation here?
Well, my bill, which was HB 928, passed unanimously in the House. It came through the Public Health Committee and passed through the committee and, like I said, passed unanimously on the floor. Went over to the Senate and didn't come out of the Public Health Committee to be voted
Didn't come
on.
out of committee.
Nope.
Senator Hobb Bryan, of course, who chairs the Health Committee in the Mississippi State Senate.
Correct.
So
what I was able to do is was also involved in the Attorney General's office has a bill in the Senate that added additional rights to a sexual assault victim's Bill of Rights. So that bill, which is SB 2211, came over to the House, and I amended that bill on the floor to add the language from 928 with the support of the Attorney General's office. As you know, her office is very concerned with human trafficking, sexual assault, and so that is a Judd B. bill now, and so it is going to conference.
who's chair over there in the Senate on Judd B?
That's Joey Fillingane.
Okay. So did Senator Bryan or anybody on the Public Health Committee, did they advise you why they couldn't support the legislation?
They have not told me. I presented the bill to the chairman and didn't really get a response as to how he would move forward or whether he would on the bill. So I don't know.
And we attempted to meet with him as well.
And he just didn't want to meet with you?
Apparently.
Didn't accept the invitation, shall we say?
Yeah, he didn't let us through the door.
Okay. Wow, that's kind of amazing here. So, did you happen to, Representative McLean, did you happen to view the committee meeting when the bill was taken up? Did it get taken up?
No, it did not.
Okay.
It was
So it
not
just
even
got-
on the agenda. Right.
I have a problem with that, I got to tell you, and that's not anything that we're going to solve today. It's something I've talked about here on the show, that committee chairpersons, I think, have way too much power in that regard, where they're not required to put a bill up for the committee. I've also attended a number of committee meetings just as an observer there. Of course, you have to be. You're not, unless you're invited to speak and recognized to speak. But when they call for votes, and it's all in favor say aye, and nobody says a word, and then the chairman says, the ayes have it. So why can't we get, no, it's another day, another discussion, and for other people, but I think we should have, honestly, a record of how folks vote in committee. And I've talked to committee chairman about, why'd you dispense with this bill? I don't even remember that one. Okay, great. So we got some work to do, I believe, in the lawmaking process. But back to this issue, might there be some concerns of Sandy on the part of the hospitals operating the emergency room and, of course, other medical personnel that might be involved here, that they just don't want to get involved and that they may be called in to participate in the legal process here?
Sure, and we understand that, and but that doesn't mean that they shouldn't do the right thing.
Sure.
And ultimately, that's what this is about. Is let's just do the right thing. I mean, we spend so much time in our judiciary committees and whatnot talking about the rights of the offender, And you know, this is just a small thing we can do for a victim. But yes, to answer your question, I think some nurses are afraid that they'll have to come testify. But the reality, I've got all these sane nurses that work for me, and I think altogether they've only had to go testify 3 or 4 times.
Okay.
And because the reality is that when you have DNA evidence, then most times they just plead out. It never goes to trial. They just plead out because, you know, what do you say? You pretty much got a locked up case.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, I don't know that there's any value a medical person a healthcare worker could add to that.
And more or less, they just have to confirm that they did do the test.
Yeah.
And you know, somebody from the crime lab may have to come testify and talk a little bit more about their methods and all of that. But basically, the sane nurse is just going to say, yes, that's my kid, and yes, I did it, and it's not that big of a deal, really.
Speaking of crime lab, Dana, are you satisfied with the crime lab? I've heard, the last couple of years that there needed to be some improvement there.
Right, and we set up a task force 2 years ago. We actually put protocols in place regarding rape kits, and because there were none. A rape kit could sit in a hospital refrigerator for years, which has happened in the past. So we knew there were backlogs of rape kits all over the state. So with this other legislation that we put together, they have 24 hours for law enforcement to come and pick up that kit.
Okay.
So, and then law enforcement has 7 days to get it to the crime lab. And then it goes on with additional procedures and protocols, time limits for that. And we developed a task force and had lots of members from lots of different agencies, law enforcement, hospital association, although we didn't really have a member there on the task force from the hospital association. But we actually we're trying to fill in the gaps on what else do we need to do. And we found a great vendor that could process send those kits with a barcode so those victims could now track their kit. They can log in confidentially and put in the barcode number and find out, where is my kit during this whole procedure? Is it still at the crime lab? What's going on with my case? So, but that's why this legislation is also important, because it fills in one of the gaps that we found out. What good does it do to have a 24-hour time limit to pick up the kit, a 7-day time limit to get it to the crime lab, and so forth, if you can't even get the rape kit done in the first place? So, this is so important, and it really is. And we, like Sandy said, we just need to do the right thing. Hospitals need to do the right thing, and we just need to protect victims.
So are there any consequences under this legislation for a hospital that doesn't conform, doesn't have the rape kits, doesn't conduct the test?
We're going to come on SuperTalk and talk about them.
That'll do it.
Or maybe do a press conference in front of the building. We could do that too. No, but and to add on to what Dana said, I think that these are repeat offenders. The rapists, we know typically they have committed multiple violent crimes, and it's good for society. It's not only good for victims, but it's good for society to take these people off the street.
Sure.
And I mean, Mississippi's supposed to be all about justice, and this is an opportunity for the legislature to prove to the people of Mississippi that they too want justice.
Dana, is this something that you guys just came across? I mean, it seems like that, knowing how you folks feel about this, and I think a lot of people do, that we would address this early. What happened here?
Well, I think just hearing more of the reports about victims being told to go somewhere else. Okay. And
got your attention?
And not understanding, is this really happening? And then finding out, yes, it is really happening.
Okay.
And it's something, Gerard, that you would think, why do we have to mandate this? We really shouldn't have to mandate it. But, that's part of my job, I think, is to protect citizens in the state. And these are, these victims need someone to have their back. So it's unfortunate that we have to put it in the code, but that's what we're trying to do here.
I wonder, Sandy, as you mentioned earlier, that it's probably a small number of criminals, honestly, that are committing these crimes over and over again,
Right.
and feel somewhat immune to their crimes. Will this possibly change the landscape of that, and that this will serve as a deterrent, which should be the hope here, right?
Right.
So,
It absolutely should, and that's a great point. And then just to, it's so inspiring to me to hear Representative McLean want to do her job. And, like you were talking about earlier, the legislative process should be about legislators hearing problems and bringing solutions to the table. And, it's about taking care of the people of Mississippi and just addressing the problems and bringing solutions. I mean, it seems pretty easy, really.
Yeah, and I honestly, just in getting to know over the years many of those who serve, I believe they feel that way as well. They just have different views on how to accomplish that goal.
Yeah,
and that's the way the whole thing works. I mean, that's why we elect people that we think more closely aligned with our viewpoints, and hopefully they all get together and work something out. Yeah.
Yep.
Ladies, appreciate you coming in. Representative Dana McLean and Sandy Middleton with the Center for Violence Prevention. Appreciate y'all coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
We're stepping aside for a break in the Element Well studio. Half an hour of middays remains.